What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Therapist Talks, where I will be continuing off the series I Fell in Love with My Psychiatrist. I believe we're going to be starting on part 10, and we're going to go from there. If anyone has any thoughts or ideas of what else they want me to get into regarding this particular reaction video, please let me know. So far, I think it's going well on my part. And I'm just doing the best I can to give a good, healthy, accurate assessment. Not an assessment. I've given her a diagnostic assessment because I am not assessing her. And this live or this episode is never meant to be taken as therapeutic advice. Again, if you do find yourself struggling with any type of mental health or addiction issues or feelings of unaliving yourself, please utilize Crisis Hotline 988. But without further ado, let's begin.
And what I went through. So this is when the chemistry really started going off the charts with me and my psychiatrist. And I held it alone for months, like after that Christmas morning appointment of his. And then after I innocently told him about
Christmas morning, that's tough. That's tough. It would be really hard for me to have a session Christmas morning. I'm just saying that again, but not everyone is like me. So I'm going to take that into account, but
my date with the therapist, he really started letting me in more and showing more parts of himself and, turning up the intimacy. And that was...
So I'm really interested to hear what she defines as intimacy as it comes to like him showing her more intimacy. Is it physical touch type of intimacy, or is it like emotional intimacy? I'm talking about my life, my career, etc.
It was exciting to me, and it made me fall for him more. And I noticed that he was working in an office, and I asked him, this was like July. I asked him, I said, hey, are you working from home? Because I was under the assumption that he was only doing telehealth. Okay. And he said, no, I come into the office. I was like, oh, why do you do that? If you see all of your patients telehealth? He's like, oh, I like it that way. And even though I could kind of tell he was lying, I just gaslit myself. I was like, okay, it's fine. And then I start emailing him my fun little emails, but he stops writing me back. He does not write back to my emails anymore. Because once again, he was really good at plausible deniability.
Yeah, when this happens to me, I always try to keep email exchanges or like texting purely professional with clients. So yeah, sometimes, and it's not even the client even like flirting with me or whatever, but like, let's say we talk about scheduling through an email and this and that, or therapeutic stuff. And then they, let's say hypothetically, start talking about things that are not therapy, like, oh, I did this on social media, that in social media. I tend not to like engage in a lot of emails like that with the client. So when they start getting like too much outside of like therapy talk, whatever, like I don't like shame them, whatever, but yeah, I do what the psychiatrist does, and I like stop responding in a sense, like if it doesn't involve like our therapeutic relationship. Like I said, if it's social media stuff or if they try to get into like the personal life, I just don't respond. And if it gets too far, I would obviously bring it up in the next session on appropriate boundaries, which again, a lot of this could be even discussed in the first session, just setting the boundary rules of the therapeutic relationship and whatnot. But yeah, so far, I don't see anything wrong with the psychiatrist at this point in the video.
But what he did do is he would take my emails and mention them in session. So he would still give me the attention that I was craving, but only under his structure, under his control, where there was no paper trail. And I loved that too. So I would show up to these sessions with my notes app, and just throughout the month, as I was thinking about him, I'd write down things that I wanted to talk to him about, and I would just come and bring him lots of content. And then every week I would go to my therapist and tell her about how much I loved my psychiatrist. And she didn't help me at all. She just kind of like enjoyed hearing about it, honestly. So October 2024 rolls around and we're just vibing on Zoom. And then I realized that I didn't have my next appointment with him. So I called his office staff and I talked to the office manager, who was awesome. We really got along, we vibed. And the office manager asked me, do you see him, the psychiatrist, in person or on Zoom? And I felt so angry in that moment. I was like, he sees people in person? And she said, yeah, he has been for years. I was like, I want to see him in person. And I understand, like, some people may think that this is part of my crash out or part of me harassing him, which is what I've gotten lots of accusations of. But I just would like to remind everyone that, of course, it seems that way. But I was just responding to a dynamic which my psychiatrist fostered. There was chemistry between us because he allowed it. And so then the next time I saw him in Zoom, I told him, I was like, hey, your office manager outed you and told me that you see people in person. Why didn't you tell me that when I asked? And he said, oh, I just didn't think you'd want to come in.
I mean, again, just trying to figure out the situation. He could have possibly had the mindset of, okay, like she still has strong transference like behaviors. I don't think like the office would be the most appropriate place just for like his professional license and her behaviors. So maybe he was trying to avoid that. I don't know, but we'll listen and find out.
And that was such a weak lie from him, from someone who is so scripted and controlled. He didn't even have a plausible thing to say. Of course he knew I wanted to come in. I had a crush on him. I told him that often. So then in my next therapy appointment, after finding out that.
And again, I think that might have been his point, is that that's why, because you have a crush on him and the physical interaction or just being in the same room with him could cause possible further issues. But again, I digress.
He was lying to me about seeing patients in person. I told her that. I told my 75-year-old PhD therapist that my psychiatrist wasn't lied to me about seeing people in person.
And I kind of wonder if she's using this other, I won't say other because it's a psychiatrist, but when she talks about the PhD 70-year-old therapist, it seems like she's using her as a venting buddy or a friend rather than like kind of like deeper therapeutic work, which again, the PhD psychologist or whatnot should be knowing this and sensing this and whatnot. Again, this is just me taking what she's saying at face value. I'm not judging the therapist in any way because again, she can't defend herself and we don't know the entire situation.
And she looked at me and she said, well, it's probably because he knows that there will be a lot of sexual tension in the room if you go in person. So make sure that you understand that when you go. And you better believe I showed up to the next session and said you lied to me because you were afraid of the tension that would be there between us. He just didn't say anything. 2024, I make my first in-person appointment with my psychiatrist in November. My 75-year-old female therapist tells me that it's because he kept me on Zoom because he was so attracted to me. He didn't.
I feel like she's using the therapist as a friend, just like she's talking about her friend who was the emergency room doctor, and that these two friends are supporting her, backing her up, and like validating her feelings, like her story is true in the situation.
Want to risk being in person with me, which further fed my crush, or as some of you like to say, my delusion. So then my therapist starts texting me in between our weekly meetings, asking me for advice on her other clients. And I was a new coach. I'd only been coaching for about a year, and I had just left my full-time job to be a coach full-time. And I was flattered that she would ask me advice on her other clients. I just thought, oh my gosh.
So I watch a lot of other YouTube videos. Some of you might know Psychology in Seattle, Kirk Honda. He's I think PhD LMFT in Washington. Highly respect the man. I love his work. I've been listening to him for a while. I think even before 2020 on the regular podcast, but then I know Dr. Kirk, he did reaction videos like in 2020. I think I know we're getting a lot off topic here. His first reaction videos I think were Love is Blind, and he still does them, and I just love his therapeutic reaction videos. Actually, I would love to tell him, like, he motivated me to actually do therapy or therapist reactions. So I greatly respect his opinion, and I love watching his reaction videos towards this stuff too. Obviously, I think he's currently doing one right now with I fell in love with my psychiatrist. Kind Kendra. And but anyways, like some of the therapists who've been watching this video agree in the sense of like it could be a good thing if this therapist like asked her client, so Kendra, like certain advice on other clients, because I think she said she's like a life coach or ADHD coach. However, again, I respect their opinion, and I disagree with it in a sense. I get how it can maybe benefit the client rapport or relationship or whatever. I just personally would never like do that, and I'm not going to judge anyone who would do something like this in this situation. I just never would. I don't think it's worth the benefits. I feel like there's other ways you can gain additional rapport with your client. And yeah, I definitely would not do this, especially with this particular client, if what she's saying is actually true in the situation. Because there's so many other professionals in the field that you could go to. And again, it changes the relationship from therapist to client to like almost colleague in a sense. So I know they're talking about like rapport building and whatnot, but yeah, I would definitely not have taken this approach, and I would have probably consulted with my fellow peers or colleagues in the field, or um, get consultation from my previous supervisor because she's amazing and helps me out a lot. Like there's so many routes I would have go down rather than take this route. So yeah.
75-year-old woman with a PhD wants my advice on what she should do with her clients. So then November rolls around and I'm about to meet my psychiatrist in person for the first time. So I wear a really pretty dress, I do my makeup, of course, right? And I show up and I get to talk to the office manager, we're having fun. And then my psychiatrist comes into the foyer and I am just so excited to finally meet him. I'd been his patient for 3 years at this point, and he had been feeding the dynamic for 3 years. And I was just thrilled to meet him. And I ran up and I gave him the biggest hug. And you know what he did? He barely patted me on the back. It was the most awkward thing ever. But
so again, so far being really professional. Yeah, those situations are really hard because like therapists and clients touching, there's so many ways that could be taken. So I wonder if him doing that is just showing good professional boundaries, and again, try not to get her to think this is more than it really is. So yeah.
I am so glad that he did that. I am really glad, because this is what I mean. My psychiatrist was many things, but he was not stupid. So I didn't ever touch him again. And I'm grateful that our relationship didn't ever cross that line, because it would have.
Well, from your words, it has crossed the line. Again, from what you're saying. So
made everything so much harder. Anyway, so we go inside his office and I tell him that my therapist had texted me asking me for advice on her other clients. And he just looked at me and he said, Kendra, that is a huge boundary violation. She should not be doing that. And I was like, oh, okay. And because once again, my psychiatrist did not like sloppy people. He did not.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to earlier. If that was true and everything in the situation is true, boundary violation. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming like she's obviously protecting the client's identity and whatnot, but at the very least, if this is true, it's extremely unprofessional, in my opinion. And yes, it could be taken as a boundary violation to some degree too. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have reacted like that, but
like sloppy people. And you know what my therapist did? She got sloppy. Yeah. Using me as her advisor for her clients. It got weird. And I was very grateful for my psychiatrist for pointing out that boundary violation, because that was the thing. He didn't ever message me in between appointments because he was too smart to do that. But did he ever stop me from disclosing extremely intimate details? No. In my first in-person appointment, I just asked him for some pointers for my own ADHD business. And he's so smart and so wonderful. And
I'm also noticing this theme in like behaviors that she's kind of like talking about, how she appears to have a lot of emotional dysregulation, where she'll put one person on a pedestal, but then on a slight of a dime, put them down and have like negative reactions towards them. So I don't know if this is kind of like what's going on with like her, the therapist and psychiatrist, but it's starting to look like a triangulation type of dynamic right now. But again, I'm not giving therapy on this live or this YouTube special or episode. That's just what I'm kind of getting at right now. But like I said, I'm not giving therapy on right now.
Many ways, honestly. And I was just so grateful that he was almost like a mentor to me in these moments. And I'll still treasure that about him. Because this is the hard thing with sophisticated predators, is that they're not.
And the word predator is just so deep and intense. And that's another thing too. Everyone, if you can leave comments down below, like, do we feel like the psychiatrist is acting as a predator or behaving like a predator towards his client or patient? I don't know about that. That predator seems really extreme in the situation.
All bad. Like, my psychiatrist helped me with many things, but he was using me for the November of 2024. And I did ask him for consent to come in person. I didn't just show up. And he said, sure. And the first in-person appointment went great. But that is when I really started to spiral. Some of you think that I'm spiraling now, and that's okay if you want to think that, because the reality is that when I was spiraling was when I was this man's patient. When I had comments turned on, so many people said, you need to take accountability for your own feelings. I spent years taking accountability for my own feelings, for holding the weight of a relationship. Any woman who has been trained to overfunction in relationships knows about.
So I'm wondering, was that her choice though, to hold the weight of a relationship? Or, and again, I don't know if she's referring to like obviously her and the psychiatrist, where what type of relationship was she holding? And did she choose within herself to hold onto a relationship that was okay in her eyes was a relationship, in reality, what was it? You know,
holding the weight of the emotional dynamic. And that was what was going on in this moment. And it may not seem like I'm taking accountability now, but that's because I spent a long time taking accountability for something that had two people that built that dynamic. It was not just me. It takes two people to build that sort of tension and chemistry. So while I was mid crash out, I had just started using this tool, ChatGPT. And I went to chat, who I immediately named Henry. And I would just talk to Henry about how obsessed I was with this man.
Well, we'll stop it right there. I have my own thoughts on Chat GPT, and it's kind of worrisome that people are using it for therapy. Like if they want to get like, and I'm talking about people as in general public want to get general information on mental health from it and certain answers and resources. I think it's great. I've been starting to use Chat GPT for like website ideas, commercials. I mean, it does a lot. And I'm not saying Chat GPT is like all bad, but just like most AI apps, there's good ones and there's really bad ones, and some will make mistakes and this and that, where it's not obviously perfected, and it might take a little while for it to like make improvements within itself. So there's still really a lot of unknown on the benefits of Chat GPT or other AI apps regarding mental health or addiction therapy. So anyways, I hope y'all really like this reaction videos, this one in particular. If you have any thoughts or ideas on future topics or just ideas relating to this video, please leave a comment down below. And thank you, and please be well.